Crypto is a game of capital rotation. Sometimes attention is on asset A, sometimes on asset B. The issue is that some of those smaller assets, they might never recover. But when we stay within the blue chips, for example, Ethereum versus Solana, it might sometimes make sense to rebalance a portfolio. Now, I invite you to check your favorite crypto YouTubers. What did they say about a particular asset at a particular point in time? For example, 2 months ago, I published a video on Solana and I showed this chart, Solana relative to Bitcoin, and how there's the potential for quite a bit of underperformance if we see a similar development to the past. Now, things are playing out pretty much the same way. But what's more useful than looking at Solana relative to Bitcoin is to look at it relative to Ethereum, because those two blockchains are the leading smart contract platforms and they are directly competing with one another. Now, this is Solana relative to Ethereum. And over here, when Solana was quite expensive relative to ETH, I opened a relative valuation trade. So that was on April 13th, again with the exact same chart. That was announced over here in premium. Subsequently, with the decline, the position moved from 43K to a bit under 60K. So sometimes it doesn't really matter where all of crypto is going. We can just bet on relative valuations. We can just bet on, is asset A outperforming asset B or asset B outperforming asset A. And this is very useful because, again, crypto is a game where capital rotation happens. The overall space is expanding, but the main gains are to be made in those rotations. And so right now, Solana seems to be cheap versus Ethereum. So does it now make sense to bet on that, to potentially buy Solana and maybe bet on falling prices of Ethereum at the same time? That's the question we try to answer in this video. Now, Solana was one of the few blockchains that was able to create a new all-time high in its capital, in the total value locked. We had our DeFi summer in 2021, then the massive collapse, the winter in 2022, and then some blockchains recovered, others didn't. Solana definitely was among the ones that did recover. Now, Ethereum recovered as well to a degree, but it did not hit the old all-time highs of 2021. Solana was able to achieve that, Ethereum was not. Now, there's quite a bit of volatility in this chart of total value locked. And that's because the Solana price itself is fluctuating. If you just want to get a feel of how much usage of decentralized finance there is currently on Solana, we just look at that TVL measured in SOL, not measured in USD. And so then this chart turns into this chart. So since the beginning of 2024, we see more and more usage of decentralized finance on Solana. The chart for Ethereum doesn't look that different, but we did have quite a bit of a correction in the last few weeks. Now, isn't that fascinating? Solana relative to Ethereum seems to be comparatively cheap, while the total value locked in decentralized finance actually went down for Ethereum, while the total value locked in decentralized finance went actually down for Ethereum, not for Solana. So do we have a potential mispricing here? And do we have a potential opportunity to buy into Solana now? Let's have a look at how much the chain is actually getting used and what it is used for. Is that usage going up? What's happening besides just the capital being on the chain? What we've got over here is the Solana decentralized exchange trading volume. And this is now measured in SOL to take away all the price fluctuations of the Solana token itself. And yes, this is over the years increasing. There's quite a bit of fluctuation, of course, but 2025 has definitely been more active than 2024, which has been more active than 2023, which has been more active than 2022. So overall, more and more usage of decentralized exchange trading, even measured in SOL. Over here, we've got the bridged total value locked. So how much money is flowing from other blockchains into Solana via bridging? Again, that's close to an all-time high. That's healthy. And here we've got the stable coins over time. Again, it tends to go up in the last months and really accelerated in 2024. So we've got a lot of trading volume, we've got a lot of capital, we've got some activity. The number of users is also going up. So here's the number of addresses on the Solana chain. Again, a massive wave of growth in 2024, and we tend to hold that level this year. It's interesting how the number of address charts tends to correlate to a degree to the number of deployed transactions on Pump.Fun. So again, a lot of growth in 2024, and now we are at a constant level. And in case you're not aware, Pump.Fun is the launch pad of meme coins on the Solana chain. So that was the main catalyst for Solana in 2024. And now there isn't that much more growth anymore, but at least we also don't see that much shrinking. The protocol had so much impact on the ecosystem on Solana that every single token, even today, that's trending, that's somewhat noteworthy and has some liquidity, is a meme coin. All of this is meme coin. Solana turned into the exchange for meme coins. Now there is a potential problem with that, right? Because the meme coin trading game is 100% zero sum. It's player versus player. The vast majority of people lose money, a small minority of people win money, and so capital concentrates over the time in a few hands. And that means that actually some people are going to exit the system over time, the more trading is happening. And so when we look at the monthly trading volume of Pump.Fun ecosystem tokens over time, measured in US dollars, this peaked in January of this year and is coming down since then. We can also see that as a fraction of all of transactions on the Solana chain, the Pump.Fun ecosystem tends to rather shrink, and everything that's not Pump.Fun tends to be on the rise. But this is now the number of monthly transactions normalized to 100%. We can also look at this just in the number of transactions itself. And yes, Pump.Fun did help the Solana ecosystem, but even without it, the transactions that were not Pump.Fun related, they also tended to grow. We can, by the way, ignore the latest data point because this month has just started, right? We are not yet done. So Pump.Fun was a great catalyst, and that catalyst is now shrinking, but that doesn't mean that the overall ecosystem is shrinking. Overall, there's still a lot of transactions. The number of transactions is going up. The US dollar amount that's moving hands might not be going up because, again, Solana is currently rather going down in price. But the question is, can we pick up again? What could be the reason for the decline of Solana relative to Ethereum in the last few weeks? Let's have a look at the trading volume. So most trading volume now happens on Binance, on the spot market. There's $500 million in the last 24 hours. But there's even more trading volume on the perpetual futures market. Again, led by Binance, but here we had 2.6 billion of trading volume. So more than 5 times what happens on the spot market. So maybe there's some kind of short-term leverage in the market, right? Maybe the price discovery short-term at least happens on the perpetuals and not on spot. When we zoom out a little bit and we talk about tokenomics, then Solana's tokenomics unfortunately really aren't that great. There is the staked SOL that tends to go up over time, and more staked Solana of course is good because this artificially suppresses the liquid supply, which should push up the price. The issue though is how quickly this is going up. So this starts in August of 2021, and to today we have seen a bit over 44 million of staked Solana. In itself, this looks like a good chart, but here's the caveat. It is this chart. This is the circulating SOL over time. And during the same time period, this went up by 234 million. So more than 5 times the amount that got staked over the time. So really, the number of liquid SOL did increase over that time quite quickly. The staking program is a positive, but it's not enough to counter the inflation of Solana. Because we all know how Solana is a proof of stake protocol, and so that's why the supply over time increases and will continue to increase. But let's get back to the perpetual futures, to the short-term bets on the Solana price that might create a lot of the recent volatility. What we see over here are the financing costs on Solana. And when a lot of people bet on falling prices, they might have a reason for this. Maybe Solana short-term is overvalued. And that's exactly what we saw subsequently. The price tended to rather go down, right? So the spot price is here in yellow. We can also see massive correlation between the spot price and the open interest on the perpetual futures market. So perpetual futures are simply bets on the price, right? It's short-term capital, it's levered capital, and the more bets there are on a certain asset, the higher the asset tends to be in the spot price as well. Now, what I find fascinating here, that even though the Solana price in US dollars peaked at very similar levels, that the open interest grew much more than that. So in other words, the recent rally, the one that started in 2024 and that was fueled by Pump.Fun, was further supported by leverage on the perpetual futures, much more than the rally that we saw in 2021. And so when the price is going down very quickly, this can simply just be a deleveraging event on the perps. Volatility is great for the market makers. Volatility is great to create liquidation fees. But especially for an asset like Solana, it can't be manipulated too much, because the market cap is simply so large. Solana has a market cap of almost $80 billion. It's not that easy to double and triple that amount just through perps. And so yes, I do believe that Solana currently is rather cheap versus Ethereum. I think there's a good chance we will see that bounce. If you're now considering, should I rather have Solana or Ethereum, you're wondering what makes more sense, at least in the medium term over the next few weeks. I think, again, that this is a good bet. We have made money with Solana before by betting on falling prices. I believe now is the time to bet on rising prices. Now, it's quite fascinating that most people take the hard route. Most people try to make money in crypto by finding the next asset that does a 10x return. The problem is that most assets don't do that. Most assets go down. There are a few assets that take a lot of the returns, but it's a market where the winner takes most. On top of that, we also have to be right about the macro environment, as in if Bitcoin goes up, then most altcoins go up as well. When Bitcoin dumps, most altcoins go down as well. So really, I think there are smarter ways to make money. I think it's better to try to not focus too much on the macro. I think it's better to find price discrepancies where you don't have to find the few winners. Let me show you what I mean. What do you prefer investing in? Is it the line at the top or is it the line at the bottom? Now at the bottom, we see Bitcoin's price movement. So this chart starts in February 2024. And as you know, we have seen quite a bit of a drop during that time, a 30% decline after we're now back above 100K. But the chart at the top has much less volatility. During that time, it appreciated by more than 1,000%, while Bitcoin went up by only 115%. Or have a look at this chart here. This starts in November of 2020. And it went up by 9,000%. While at the same time, here is Bitcoin, it only went up by 500%. Now what I'm showing here with those charts at the top are actually not altcoins that outperformed the rest. It's not one of those few winners. Instead, we looked at relative valuation charts. So we looked at the Bitcoin price relative to a very poorly performing altcoin. Now I'm not saying what kind of altcoins this is, but in general, this is also a Bitcoin chart here at the top. It's just not relative to the US dollar, but relative to a very bad altcoin. Let's make an example. Check out this. This is PIF. PIF had a lot of token supply growth in the last 30 days. So here are the tokenomics of PIF. Over time, there's more and more supply hitting the market. Now, if demand doesn't grow as quickly as supply, the price should be going down. And as per tendency, that is right. So this is now the PIF chart. Now, PIF is an asset on the Solana chain. So let's compare Solana with this. The price didn't always go down. And that's because sometimes Solana rallies. And so PIF comes with it. Again, the problem with correlation, the problem of the macro environment. But when we look at that PIF chart, not in US dollars, but relative to Solana, suddenly we've got a much more stable trend. Now, this is not necessarily the trend we want, right? We don't want to buy PIF, but we want to do the exact opposite, right? We might consider buying Solana and betting on falling prices of PIF at the same time to then get the delta. So in the end, we cancel out the macro because we are long one asset. We bet on rising prices of one asset, in this example Solana, and we're betting on falling prices of the other asset. So in this case, PIF. So overall, what the overall market is doing when it's going up and down, it doesn't matter to our portfolio because one thing tends to go up, one thing tends to go down. The only thing that matters is the relative performance. And then we've got very constant declines. Or if we now flip this chart, if we don't look at PIF relative to Solana, but we look at Solana relative to PIF, we get our nice growth charts. So this is now a more than 500% increase. And again, it's much less volatile compared to buying Solana directly. So this is, I believe, the easy way to make money in crypto. It is a bit more complex than just buying a random altcoin, but in the end, we have the odds in our favor because, again, most altcoins tend to go down because the supply expands over time, and we are also hedged against the macro. We don't care if Bitcoin and Solana go up or down because we go both long and short at the same time. We can have a very constant growth this way. And here is what I mean with constant growth. This is my portfolio development since I started trading this long short strategy. The maximum drawdown was 5.67%. The equity is 36K and the growth over the span of roughly 2 months was 11K. Now, the most important thing here is not necessarily how much this grew. That's of course nice. But what I really like is that the drawdown was so low. We don't care about the macro. We don't care if things currently go up or down. All we care about is pricing inefficiencies. And so think about it. Do you want to buy a lot of different altcoins hoping for the one moonshot that might make up for all of the losses that in the end might never come? Or is it maybe better to just continuously grow with very little downside? I think the latter is better. If growth is predictable and if you can manage our risk properly and if you can make money independent of the market situation, we've got something that's much more valuable than just trying to find the 10x that might never come. Now again, this strategy is not as straightforward as just buying an altcoin on a centralized exchange. We do have to learn a little bit, but I actually made a video just on that topic. You don't have to watch every single video here, but the one at the top, that's the most important one. Using perpetual futures on Hyperliquid to bet on relative valuations. It's 34 minutes after you've watched this. You should understand how to do all of those setups. How to bet on charts like this or how to bet on charts like this. And how to have the odds in our favor, right? With all of those red bubbles over here. And again, be independent of the macro. It's the constant growth that's really attractive. So again, here's that tutorial video. It's part of the premium membership, thebitcoinstrader.com. And of course, I also share my own trades. For example, over here, I shorted WorldCoin recently. WorldCoin relative to Ethereum. So we're betting on Ethereum to outperform WorldCoin. So that was on the 23rd of May. I'm sharing this because this position is now closed and I closed it on the 28th of May. And so in the end, when you've got the right risk management in place and you put on some leverage on the position, you can make really nice gains. Here was the Hyperliquid chart at the time. So it already went up a little bit since then. But yeah, people are making money with this, right? This is not just me cherry picking the data. Here, have a look at this. This was one member that made some money with the WorldCoin short. Another one over here and here and here. Thanks, Gerhard. The premium membership paid itself already. And so that's in the end the fundamental idea, right? It's about making consistent gains. It's not about buying random lottery tickets, hoping for the one salvation trade. So feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. It used to be 165, but currently the attention on crypto is comparatively low. Once all the tourists enter the space, I will of course raise the price again. But right now, if you sign up today, then you will lock in that price. So everybody that signs up now will not get affected by the future price increase. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in premium. There should be a link to premium directly over here. You just click on that card and it will lead you directly to the sign up page. See you over there. Cheers.